I thought it'd just be kind of fun to take a look at this power station because it's just got such a basic design on it. So, if you're looking for a power station and you're just, you're just really turned off by some of these weird designs that some of these power stations have, you might want to take a look at this. This is about as basic as it gets. Now, talking about the specs here real quick, I just want to mention this, right off the bat, is that they do mention that this is 460 watt hours. It's kind of looking like that's not really the case. So we'll kind of talk about that more here in a second. So yeah, just one thing to note about that. And actually, we'll talk about all the specs here, but I really want to just kind of talk about this design because this is just like super interesting, right? Like if you want just like a box, with some output ports on it, they do give you some USB as well. This is basically probably what you want to take a look at because there's nothing special about this. It's literally just a basic design. Now, what's interesting about this is that this brand, it actually appears to be a clone of this Ctechi. And so this is kind of interesting. As you can see, it's basically using the same display, and basically a lot of the layout is the same, and the specs too. I think the specs we're going to see that the specs are probably about the same as well, because the Ctechi actually does mention that it has a smaller battery. But what's interesting about this is I would actually call this Ctechi more of like a minimalist design, right? I mean, this is kind of the difference here. Like this is what I would just call like a basic design, and then this is what I would call a minimalist design, which basically means it's still a very simple design, at its core, but we do get some nice design detail, right? Like this front panel, how it mimics the overall shape of this case, right? The switches the switches have a little bit more of a design detail to them as well. So it's a very simple design. And this one, by the way, too, has this, the handle actually folds flat down into the unit. So yeah, they're both simple designs, but that Ctechi just has a little bit more style, right? A little bit more attention to detail. This, this JustNow is like literally a box, with some output ports on it. And actually, what's interesting, there is kind of a pro and con here. What's interesting is that they mentioned this is actually like a metal. It does look like a metal box too, right? Now they don't mention if it's actually aluminum. It probably, hopefully, it is aluminum. And one of the things I love seeing aluminum on these power stations actually because it helps dissipate the heat because you're going to be creating a bunch of heat inside this unit when you're using it. And it does have the cooling fans. Well, actually, we got to talk about that. That's something to note as well. We'll talk about that here more in a second. But yeah, from a cooling standpoint, it's probably pretty good. And then again, if you want something super basic, now we don't get, unfortunately, you can't really use this flat surface at the top here because they just tacked on this extra handle here. So let's just kind of get this out of the way. Basically, as I mentioned, 460 watt hours, that doesn't appear to be the case. And basically, as you see here, the number one review on this product, this guy did, he did like a full discharge test, AC and DC, and, basically, he didn't get anywhere near 460. He's basically saying probably somewhere around 300 watt hours. And that's actually kind of makes a little bit more sense when you actually look at these Ctechi units as well. So they actually have two units down here. As you can see, they have a 299 watt hour and then a 384 watt hour. So again, with this JustNow being a clone of, seems like a clone of these units, it's, they're probably using either the battery out of one of these two. I mean, who knows? And it is, LFP batteries. So, 3,500 plus cycles on there, or cycles. Now for the charging, basically you're not going to get any kind of like crazy fast charging specs with this thing. And they also don't actually talk about the exact solar specs. It's probably somewhere around 28 volts max. So you would basically just use like a standard 100 watt 18 volt panel with this thing, and then maybe you'll get 50, 60, 70 watts from it. Maybe. But and then one thing to note too with the wall charger, it's still using a power brick on this thing. And then another thing to note too, because the power brick and the car adapter that they give you, it plugs in right here. It's actually a 5525 on there. So it's not a 5521, it's a 5525. Now this is interesting. They're talking about, the fan noise on this thing. I haven't really seen any other company actually, well, they're saying 50 to 55 decibels, but then they show this thing here, 50.8. So that's interesting. I wonder if that is the actual you know, the actual number that you're going to get with the fans on these things. But the one thing I would say is that they're claiming this is quiet operation. No, I would typically say that you kind of want to look for like 45 decibels or less to really have something that you're not going to really notice too much and just not going to be annoyed by. And then just a few last little notes about this unit. Just to talk about the USB here, they do claim that these are 3 amp USB A's, and then the USB C is actually only a 30 watt. So that's kind of not that great. And then one thing that I kind of like to check on these cheap budget units, because a lot of these they just don't get it right, is to make sure that this the AC plug on this thing, the outlet on this thing is actually has the correct orientation, and it does. Basically the larger opening is on the left side. The left side looking at it. If you look at it the other way, and yeah, there's no display, there's no percentage, there's no graphic. Basically it's a state of charge display with 5 little blue lights, right? So each one is about 20%. So that'll still, give you some indication of what the battery's doing. And then, one little design detail that this thing does have that I do kind of like, these little icons down here at the bottom, So if you're looking at this thing, saying to yourself, well, why the heck did I buy this thing? There you go. So yeah, hopefully you just kind of found this overview helpful, interesting, entertaining, something. And yeah, thanks for watching.